So I gotta be honest. Walking into this movie, I was not expecting the director to devote quite as much screen time to Winston Churchill in the bathroom. Darkest Hour is directed by Joe Wright and stars Gary Oldman, Lily James, Ben Mendelsohn, and Kristen Scott Thomas. This is the true story of Winston Churchill, who became Prime Minister during a very critical moment of World War II. This movie's been out for a while, but since the Academy Award nominations have just been announced, we wanted to review all of the movies that have been nominated for Best Picture.
So honestly, I was really surprised going into this movie. I did not expect it to be a Best Picture worthy title, but honestly, I can say it holds up. We were both very surprised to find out that Gary Oldman was nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role, but I can safely say that he absolutely deserves it. He owns this movie to the point where he almost seems unrecognizable, especially when compared to some of the other roles he's played in stuff like Batman and Harry Potter. Speaking of Gary Oldman, I can very safely say that the acting in this movie was excellent across the board. I think it was a very well cast movie, and everybody really did a very believable job. I think one thing that really credits the good acting in this movie was the fact that the dialogue was great. There was a lot of unsuspecting humor in this movie, which I actually really appreciated. Walter did as well. I think everything about the dialogue and the story of this movie was very believable and really just fun to watch. And all that on top of Joe Wright and his directing abilities, this movie looks great, very well shot, very well directed. I really have to give props to him. He did an excellent job here. Overall, I have to say this movie was actually very enjoyable. I really did like a lot of the aspects of this movie. Walter did have a couple of differing opinions, though.
So Chris mentioned the characters of this movie, and it's true that they are excellently portrayed by these actors. Unfortunately, a small problem with it is that not a lot of them get a lot of screen time, and it would have been nice to get a bit more characterization for a few of these characters. Specifically, Winston Churchill's wife, who is portrayed by Kristen Scott Thomas, a really big actress. She's barely on screen, though, and we felt that it would have been a little better if we would have seen more of Winston Churchill's support system. Also, in the same vein, it would have been nice to see some of the events that took place before Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister. There are a number of characters who talk about his bad reputation and how he's made some bad decisions that they don't think make him worthy of being the Prime Minister. It would have been nice to see a couple of these decisions. The third act is also pretty long in this movie, so they could have even trimmed some time off of the end of it and used that to develop the characters a bit more in the beginning. Now here's where our opinions differ. Going back to our post review, I really enjoyed that movie and Chris did not find it as engaging as I did. In a funny twist, our opinions are swapped for Darkest Hour. Chris really enjoyed this movie and I was not as much of a fan. For me, the biggest problem with this movie lies in its second act. I really enjoyed the first act, and it grabbed my attention again for the final part of the movie, but during the middle, I lost interest. At this point in the film, there are a number of scenes which involve people sitting around a table in the same location, having very long discussions. Now, this works in a lot of other movies. I don't automatically hate dialogue-heavy movies, and The Post is a good example of that. For some reason, this movie just didn't engage me as much. This is still a very solid film, though, and I definitely did not hate it. So, all in all, despite the fact that I didn't love this film, I definitely recommend it, especially because Gary Oldman just really kills it in this role. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
I was actually extremely impressed with this movie. Gary Oldman, like Walter said, was excellent. The dialogue I really enjoyed. I found it really engaging and definitely worthy of the Best Picture nomination. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.